Welcome to NYC Now, your source for local news in and around New York City from WNYC. It's Wednesday, August 27th. Here's the midday news from Michael Hill.
Bail reform has been a lightning rod in New York since state lawmakers proposed the policy more than 5 years ago. Now, at its center of a new executive order from President Trump that could threaten billions of dollars in federal funding. The order says federal resources should not support places that have cashless bail policies for crimes that threaten public safety and order, like violent offenses, looting, and vandalism. New York still allows bail for violent crimes. Constitutional law expert Alex Reinert says it's unclear whether the executive order is even legal.
Of course, it could be fiscally extremely damaging to the state and the city.
Reinert says if the Trump administration does target New York, he expects a legal battle. Tennis fans are flooding Flushing, Queens for the U.S. Open, but it's not cheap. A U.S. Open hat, $48. A lobster roll, $39 to $50. And then there are tickets with face values of $169 each for ground passes at this week's opening round. Hit the second-hand market, and you could be paying $300 or more. Some fans say it's getting harder to stomach the cost, but others like Lauren Rennert says it's still worth it.
This is one of the nicest sporting events I think I've ever been to in New York. I mean, I think we knew going into it that we were going to pay $25 for a drink and accepted that before we got here.
The Open runs through September 7th. 73 with sunshine now. Sunshine at 77 for a high today, partly sunny, and 79 tomorrow. And then Friday, chances of showers and storms, and 77.
Stay tuned for more after the break.
WNYC. On WNYC, I'm David First. The state comptroller is kind of like the state's accountant. But before your eyes glaze over and you tune out, what if I told you that the Comptroller of New York oversees $250 billion, and how that money is used really affects your life? Well, there's a Democratic primary that is just getting underway for the office. Incumbent Tom DiNapoli is running for a fifth term in the job that he's held since 2007. But first-time candidate Drew Warshaw says the office can do more to help with the affordability crisis. Here to help explain the stakes is WNYC's Jimmy Vielkind, who spoke to both candidates. Welcome.
Hi, David.
And Jimmy, first of all, this is not a primary that is happening right now. When is this taking place?
This will be in June of 2026, so several months from now.
Okay, but I'm putting big circles on the calendar as we speak. Can you spell it out for us? What does the state comptroller do, and what has Tom DiNapoli done?
Well, the job really has two major parts. First, the comptroller controls an army of auditors, and they have the ability to look at state spending, to look at how state government agencies are functioning, whether they're processing claims for public assistance. They've looked at the MTA and how the trains are running on time. They've looked at debt levels. So it's a pretty big scope. And then the second part is perhaps a little bit, it sounds boring, but it's really significant. It's to oversee the state's pension fund. So that's a massive pool of money. Right now, it's more than $280 billion with a B dollars. And so, each year, employees of the governments, both state and local governments, put money into that fund. The governments that employ them, so eventually the taxpayers, they put money into all to fund pension benefits that will one day come to these employees. And so the idea here is that you've got money coming in and money going out, and you want to earn investment income on that money, because the more you earn in your investments, the less people have to pay in, and the happier everybody is. So the fund is invested in all sorts of stuff. It's invested in stocks, it's invested in bonds, it's even invested in some real estate. So that is basically the biggest part of the comptroller's job. Now, DiNapoli was an assemblyman from Long Island for more than 20 years when he got the job in 2007. His predecessor resigned in scandal after he was caught taking bribes to steer the investments that the fund made. So DiNapoli's basic claim is that he's been a steady hand.
And what about Drew Warshaw? Who is he and what does he want to do?
So Warshaw started his career as one of those behind-the-scenes people in government. He worked for Governor Eliot Spitzer. He also had a position at the Port Authority, where he worked on the redevelopment of the World Trade Center site. And more recently, he's run companies that developed solar power and affordable housing. So he says that he feels he can do a better job managing that pension fund than DiNapoli. And he says that one of the things that DiNapoli has done wrong is put too much of the pension funds into private equity investments, which come with pretty hefty investment fees. Disclosure documents show that it's basically more than $1 billion a year.
Fees that go to private equity funds, hedge funds, and the like that he has increased during his time in office, and just earn a regular rate of return that the market is going to give.
So that's Warshaw's basic plan. Just let the fund track the stock market. Don't try to beat it. Skip the fees and you'll end up doing better in the long run.
Skip the fees. Well, lots of financial planners say that's a good personal investing strategy, but what does DiNapoli say?
He says that it's really not the best way to manage such a large pool of money like the New York Common Retirement Fund, which also has to make money forever. There will always be public employees. There will always be pensions to pay out. It's not like an individual who knows I'm going to try and retire at 65, 70, or, for millennials like me, maybe like 80 or 90. So we'll see exactly about how that goes. And DiNapoli has defended these private equity investments by saying that they help out at times when the stock market takes a dive. Take a listen.
If you want to ride the roller coaster of the public markets, what you're going to do is have a whipsaw in your contribution rates for the government employers.
So again, DiNapoli is making the argument that he's the steady hand. And with something like public pension funds, boring and sober is good.
Our politics today includes fights over social issues, raising and lowering taxes, policing policies, the continuing value of democracy as a thing. Do you think voters are going to get excited about pension investing?
Well, that's a really good question, David. And I think it's a problem for Warshaw. Politicians don't get their jobs by going before some board and talking about, here are my ideas, here are my qualifications, and then these smart people pick the best people. They have to win elections. And I'm sorry to say this, but sometimes people win not because they're the smartest or have the best ideas, but because they're popular or famous or rich. So it's also really hard to unseat an incumbent politician in New York. DiNapoli has been in office for almost 20 years. He's known in political circles as someone who's just a really nice guy. He's pleasant. He always shows up, and he's pretty close to major unions that are a big help in campaigns, particularly Democratic primary campaigns. So that's a pretty big advantage. Warshaw, on the other hand, he's got energy. He's raised $1 million for his campaign in just a few months, which is noteworthy. And he's arguing that his run fits into this larger narrative among Democrats looking for new faces, a new generation, and a new style of leadership.
WNYC's Jimmy Vielkind talking about the primary for New York State Comptroller that is happening in June of next year. Jimmy, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure, David.
Thanks for listening. This is NYC Now from WNYC. Check us out for updates every weekday, 3 times a day for the latest news headlines and occasional deep dives. And subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back this evening.
NYC.